If you think about the WI, you probably think of women with blue rinses and perms sat in a circle in a church hall, and jam in Jerusalem. But you'd be far from the fighting activists that have always formed the WI. The calendar girls are the most recognisable people connected to the WI because they went against the long-held stereotype.
Well, so I moved to the little village of Quaco 32 years ago. Angela came and knocked on my door and said, would I like to join the WI? I said, oh, never really thought about it because I was only 36 then. And she said, if you don't join, they'll think you're funny in this village. So I joined and met some brilliant women whom I would not have met if I hadn't joined. Well, every year WI do a traditional calendar which features pictures of hills and letterboxes and sheep. And every year we're asked if we have a photograph to submit which may possibly be chosen for that calendar. And this particular year, a long time before John was ill, I just turned to Angela and said, we could do an alternative WI calendar. Feature the crafts of WI, but in the nude. And she said, as if. And over supper we told a few more girls about it, and it was a joke. It was a joke, and it would have stayed a joke if John hadn't become ill. It was just huge straight away. It just seemed to strike out, because it was WI, I think, and middle-aged women in the nude, I suppose, from a little village in the Yorkshire Dales. Well, WI, I think, is on the up, definitely on the up. And I think that's partly because of us, who apparently changed the image of the WI forever and altered the perception of the older woman. None of which we intended to do, but apparently we have done. So I just think WI will go from strength to strength. WI came very closely, followed the suffragettes, and have done such a lot for women's rights. So I think, and I feel it's the backbone of the country, really.
The WI didn't start in this country. It was founded here in 1915, but it was actually 1897 in Canada where it began. And it was as the first social network, really. It was to connect women in outlying districts in Canada and to help them, support them in their families and their communities. And the person who brought it to this country was a woman called Madge Watt, who was one of the first university graduates in Canada. When it was founded in 1915, it wasn't just to produce food and produce for the war. It was also to educate women, which was quite a progressive thing to be thinking of in 1915. And it was also to change society for the better. Grace Haddo was somebody who pioneered university education for women, but it was she who was the linchpin of the educational side of the WI. It was just the elite who went to university, and she wanted to spread education out for ordinary women, not just for education's sake, but this is where Edith Rigby comes in. Edith was a suffragette from Lancashire, and she wanted women to be educated in order to use the vote when it came. Edith was a really rampant suffragette. She was imprisoned, I think, 7 times.
Grace Haddo was allowed to do all the hard work at university but was not allowed to accept her degree because she was female. Educating women wasn't the only WI campaign.
I think the early campaigns were the most important. By the early 1920s, they were campaigning for the better treatment of single mothers and illegitimate children, which ladies were not supposed to think about, let alone say anything about, let alone do anything about. They were campaigning for the better treatment and publicity about STDs. They were even campaigning about genital mutilation. This is in the 1920s, way ahead of their time. And for them to put themselves out there in the public as respectable women and yet to be campaigning for things like this was really brave, really courageous, and they got things changed.
There were many other campaigns over the years, but one campaign that assisted in Kath Watson and Marty Ward being able to take aid to Romania was the Campaign for Female Magistrates. Without this campaign succeeding, Marty and Kath would have never have become magistrates, who would have never met to talk about going to Romania to take aid.
It was January 1990, and the revolution had just happened in December in 1989. The Berlin Wall had come down previously to that, but Romania hit all the headlines in January 1990. of the children in the orphanages living in appalling conditions. I was a magistrate in Doncaster bench, and a fellow magistrate called Marty Ward that I met in the retiring room one day in March said that she was going to Romania with an aid organisation within the next month, and I said that I've got to do something like that.
I resolved, when I saw the awful pictures of the orphanages on television, I said to my husband, I said, our dog has a better bed than that. An elderly friend of mine said, oh, our church have just had somebody talking about going to Romania, and they're appealing for drivers, and you can drive, can't you? So I said, you would go. So I sort of got landed with it.
The experience of driving across Europe just turned out to be enormous fun, if probably a bit frightening at times, wondering if we'd got the right road, and we had to sleep, have bed and breakfast in any place that we could find that was convenient. Well, at that time we were taking immediate aid, like soap and toilet rolls and food and blankets and everything. It was nearly like a sort of taking things out to an earthquake or disaster area, really. It was immediate help that was wanted in some of the children's hospitals and children's orphanages. Toys, clothes, that sort of level of aid. At the beginning, it changed to more specific aid as time went on. We went into one particular hospital which was for AIDS babies in a place called Broshoff, and because of the staff's lack of training and general humanity type of understanding, many of the babies were what was called prop fed, where they were propped up on a piece of rolled up blanket or towel or something, and a feeding bottle was pushed into their mouths and propped up so that they just lay with the feeding bottle by the side of them. And we tried to help a group of nurses who'd gone out from Doncaster Hospital at that time, Children's Hospital, to just pick the babies up and feed them in a loving fashion like any baby would expect.
We took a whole maternity unit out there. Scunthorpe Hospital was closing down its maternity unit and moving to new property. And the whole of the maternity equipment that they had in their old maternity unit was just going to go be scrapped. So it was decided that we could have that if we wanted it. So a little team of us went to Scunthorpe Hospital, armed with screwdrivers and hammers, and we took the whole of the operating theatre apart. We had the bench, several stainless steel trolleys. We had baby resuscitation units. We had weighing scales. We even unscrewed the lamp, the operating lamp that you can sort of direct from the ceiling, and took that out, and they were very well received when they got it as well. Another occasion we took a whole dental surgery out, including the chair, all the cabinets with all the equipment in them. There again, the lamp that went on the ceiling, and that again was well received.
As the visits went on, Marty and the people they were helping felt the aid was just a temporary fix, and that teaching skills alongside the aid would be more beneficial for the future, leading to the skills workshops taught by the WI every other year and trying to set up a Romanian women's organisation.
Well, we felt it was important because the aid that we took over originally, and which people after us still continued to take it, that was fine, but we thought that as soon as that aid was dissipated, used, it was gone. They were ready for another lot. And they also said to us, we don't want to live on charity. We don't want our children to expect to live out of boxes. We want them. They wanted a little pride. They wanted pride in themselves. So we felt that if we gave them the means to help themselves, it was much more useful to them than just sort of taking things for them which were presents and would soon disappear.
Marty's idea that to teach skills that they could acquire that would not only help their well-being of self-worth and being able to make things and produce things that which were either practical or pretty, was going to be such a help to their psyche. But it was also to help them to further the skills that they already had, because we discovered that they had the most incredible skills with things like embroidery and lace making and so on, but to make things like clothes or hats or furnishings. We felt that we had made some extremely good friends, which we still have, and we also left a more cohesive group of women. It may not necessarily have continued quite as we had hoped, because there were difficulties amongst the women that were very long-held difficulties, either ethnic nationalities or religions, that did sort of cause divisions. But over the 10 years that we were doing the exchange programme, which also brought a lot of them to England as well to experience life here, they got a completely new aspect on life.
I think that empowered us, but also the Women's Institute had had such an effect on us beforehand that we felt that we were capable of doing it.
I mean, there is no doubt that I wouldn't possibly have done what we did in Romania, if I hadn't been a WI member. I mean, that is absolutely paramount, and it's been the most important part of my life.